come on in and say, hey, I'm going to make a sweetheart wreath. So I brought out a grapevine, one of my favorite things to work with. I brought out a variety of greenery and florals. So I brought out way more than what I'm going to need, I know. And I brought out some new fun ribbon. Ribbon, ribbon, ribbon. These are gorgeous. And I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 roses on this bush. All right, so like I said, I brought out a ton, way more than what I'll probably need for this, but I'm going to start with the grapevine, and I'm pretty sure this one is a 16-inch grapevine. It is, yay. And I'm actually going to start with my bow. And I'm trying to, this ribbon's got a little bit of blue in it, and I think I want it to be kind of a soft color. So I'm just going to go with the white, didn't I? So I'm going to do a single ribbon bow, and I'm going to use this, it's called a diagonal line with a drift edge. It's got like that soft drift edge on it. And so I'm going to use it, and we're just going to make a single ribbon bow. Okay, here's a trick with grapevine. Don't glue it down. So what I did when I first started working with grapevine is I would place, you know, I would make my cuts, and then I would stick it in the grapevine, but I would not glue it down. And if it didn't feel good to me, then I could move it. But there's been times where I've glued stuff down and I've still moved it because, you know, I can get the glue out. Especially if it hasn't sat there very long. And then the other thing too is you can take a blow dryer and soften up that glue and be able to remove items. So a grapevine is not a permanent, but my best recommendation is always going to be just place it in there first before you glue it down. And then you can kind of get a feel. So for me, I want this to be kind of a soft feminine look. So that's why I'm just going to go with this white snowdrift ribbon, snowdrift edge ribbon. So I'm actually going to start by adding my bow first, and we're going to kind of work around it. And I love a good clean grapevine. This one doesn't have any leaves or anything in it. I actually got these last year, but I kept some back for me. Hopefully this spring I will be getting more grapevine. They sold out fast last year. Faster than what I thought, that's for sure. It is a personal choice on whether you make a bow first, start with a bow, or end with a bow, or do a bow in the middle. There are no golden rules, but in this case, so my tails are here, I can decide, do I want my bow off to the side? Do I want it up top? Do I want it down below? So there's several, or do I want it on the opposite side, right? So sometimes starting with a bow as your focal point can help you on deciding where you're going to put your florals and greenery. So what I like to do is I like to start with a pretty green base. So I'm going to use This is just so fun. I'm going to use one of these sprays that just came in. And if you can tell, let me move this out of the way. It has like several sections. So I'm going to actually dissect this into a section, this into a section. So I have 4 sections. I could actually go smaller than that, but I want to keep them kind of a full. So I'm going to dissect this. And these are, this one is paper wrapped, so it very easily comes apart. There we go. So out of this one stem, I now have 3 different branches. And these are very similar to one another. And this one's just a little bit different. So let's take those, and over here off on the side, well, you guys can see it, I have a small glue pot, which is actually a skillet, and this one is about an 8-inch skillet. I don't need anything bigger than that, and I want to make sure that my glue is about the consistency of honey. If you get it too runny, it makes it string that much worse, so you want to try and get the good consistency. So now I'm just going to kind of slide in and start adding some greenery. And of course, all of this is wired, so if I want it to go fun way, I can go up, out. Let's take this one, and I'm going to do kind of the opposite over here. So also look at your starting point. Where do you want to have your starting and end? And again, don't glue it down. If you're not sure, just don't glue it down. Stick them all in there. They'll slide right back out, and you can put them right back in. And then maybe this one can go underneath the bow. Oh, I'm liking that already. So let's glue those down. Did. All right, so starting again, you know, with a greenery base, kind of looking at that greenery, and you can, so this is the top, say this is the top, but see how I've already made this 16-inch grapevine bigger because I'm bringing the greenery away from the grapevine. Same way with this long piece of boxwood. I could cut it in half and go with smaller pieces, but I want to stay with the length. All right, so see how all that greenery is filling in already? I'm going to put a little bit, I love working with boxwood. But you'll notice I also brought out some lamb's ear because see how soft that is? So that different texture in there, and also a different color. All of that kind of fun stuff kind of makes a difference, or I enjoy making a grapevine using the different textures and colors. All right, before I start adding some filler, let's start adding some pops of color. All right, pink roses. So it's a sweetheart. So I'm going to make this so that it's not necessarily for Valentine's Day, but that's why I called it a sweetheart wreath. And we're already starting to see some color pop in there. And on the leaves, I like to keep the leaves, they slide up on these, so it helps with the greenery when we get close to the grapevine. Definitely enough to do a couple of projects. For sure, for sure. Depending on how big you want to do. How big or small. Go big or go home, right? macaroni. Okay, look at how beautiful that is already with just the, I'm gonna take this white flowering filler bush and we're gonna add a little softer colors with this white. And watch as this thing, it just unfolds right before our eyes, doesn't it? Trim it. Oh, I don't even know how many stems. There's 3, 4, 5. We'll start with 6. Where's Charlotte at? It's got the sliders on it. I think it's Charlotte that likes the sliders. All right, so now let's start adding a little bit of pop of white in there, and it's also a different color of green, so I'm getting some variegated colors there too. So I'm just adding some light touches of white in there, and I'm going to slide these a little bit closer to the edge, trim off a little bit of that, and we're going to integrate some of this into our bow. So I'm going to go down in between the ribbon on the bow and add some greenery in there too. So it looks like it's coming right out of the bow. By the way, if you are working with grapevines, one little trick of the trade is take your stem and go underneath your bow, and then it helps secure your ribbon too, wherever you've attached it to your grapevine. And he does not want to go any deeper. So if you put it right underneath the ribbon of your bow, it helps with that. All right, do we want to, I really think I want to add some of this pink vesica. It's gorgeous, y'all. There's my tag. If I get my temperature off and it's too runny, I get much more stringing. And then of course there's that little trick too of to help with getting rid of strings, because no matter what, you're always going to get some strings, is take that glue or your blow dryer on low heat to your grapevine, and then it helps melt those glue strings to an invisible, it kind of melts them right into the project, and it looks invisible when you get done. Look at that. Just adding that little bit of vesica there. Can you guys see that? That's pretty. That's pretty. And look at how full it is. So, you know, the difference between a $50 grapevine, an $80 grapevine, $110 grapevine, you know, so you don't have to spend a lot of money on greenery to get the right price out of it. It's like that ambiance. If you guys sell your products, and I know some of you are here because you just like to learn and do it for a hobby, to have something new in your own home. But for those of you that sell your product, adding things like this can make the difference in how you price it. Also, when I get done with grapevines, I will go back and I do what I call the pull test. Does anybody? That one didn't want to go where I wanted it to be. So I will go back and I will yank on every little piece that I just added and make sure that it dried well and is secured to the grapevine. All right, you see all these beautiful flowers going on. My lamb's ear is basically going to be my last piece that I'm going to add, but strategically, where do I put it? So I take a look at my wreath and I say, well, is there any place that is lacking? Is there any place that needs a little more oomph? Now this has got some beautiful oomphs going on, but I see one spot right in here that looks a little bare. Watch what happens, and I haven't glued it down yet. Watch what happens when I stick that lamb's ear in there. Did that just not change the whole presentation of that area? So just by taking a simple piece like that and adding, you can, again, step up your game. And here's a little trick too, you guys. So say for instance, we get this, we've already got our bow done, it's in there, and we're like, oh man, I wished I would have made my tails longer. You can actually take your ribbon, if you have a steel pick machine, that's always the easiest way, but let me show you, because I see, oh, it's heavy. If you don't have a steel pick machine, you can use like those green floral picks, you know, the kind that you find in the floral department that have like the little wires on the end of them. But what I do is I'll take the edge of my ribbon and I'll crimp it up about an inch from the edge, and I lay it right there in my steel pick, give it a little squeeze. And now I've added a pick to the end of it, so I can use that pick and add it to my wreath. So now I'll cut my ribbon and I'll add a little bit of glue here. And I'm going to go back in and I'm going to use that and insert it into my grapevine at an angle. I don't want to stick that steel pick straight down because they're very, 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 very sharp. She does like to prescribe pain. And there's other alternatives too, Diana. I mean, Pain Med is good. I'm not knocking that, but, you know, looking at the alternatives or some of the other alternatives too might be great. Definitely, I encourage anybody, you know, have that discussion with your medical care provider. All right, so now we just added a longer tail. Even though we didn't originally start out with it, we added some more dimension to that. And I'm going to look at that. And it looks like it's part of the bow. I want to get it placed just a little bit further. And okay, so once you get all your greenery, you've done your, I do my little pole test. You can move it around. You can, you know, everything's wired. So if you want this rose to stand a little more out to attention, or maybe you want it to lay a bit further, that's the beauty of it, is you can still move things around. It's not permanent. You can get it to conform to whatever you want it to look like, even if it's already glued down. Love it. Love it. Holy cow. Y'all, Okay, let's zoom out. Let's zoom out. Got another little glue string. So in this case, my bow is a little, it's on the side. And this one's going to be a little more towards the top. Not directly on the side, but kind of on the top. And look at that. And look how full it is. So even on the sides, you know, I'm not seeing the grapevine on the sides if you look at it from an angle, but I love having part of the natural wood or the naturalness of the vines showing through. Grapevines are very popular where I live. They love the grapevines. Have a good night, guys.